Okay, hello everyone, Random Gamer Riven here in today's weekday live stream from behalf of Randomised Gaming. Yes, I'm going to carry on doing this while the current world events are going. So today is Wednesday, it is the 13th of May, and I am doing Namco Museum 50th Anniversary Edition. Now there's quite a lot of Namco museums. This is the one on the Gamecube PS2. In fact, this is the first one on the Gamecube PS2. There's a second one that was US only, or was that only released on the PlayStation? There is another one with some different games in. This one got released in all the regions. It was published by Namco. It was developed by Digital Eclipse, and the original arcade games were all Namco. And it was released in 2005 and includes 16 games, I believe. It says 14, but it's actually 16. There's 2 unlockable games, although I won't probably be unlocking them in this video. Now, one small note. Someone who did this collection was clearly a fan of 80s rock. So, I'm just going to turn up this... Let's just pause that a second. I'm just going to turn up the game sound. I need to be very careful when I go back to the menu to change game, because this has a load of 80s rock songs, and if I do not mute them, this stream will be killed dead brutally. So I'm going to let you in on a little secret. I don't really play Pac-Man that much. I was around at the time. Well, not quite. I was sort of ish when this was sort of in this heyday. And it's one of those games that I think everyone played. If you lived through the 80s, I realised this. I think this was was this late 70s or early? I think it's 81. If you lived through the 80s, you will have played or at least seen Pac-Man. It is a classic. It does get very repetitive very quickly. Has an interesting backstory. Those in the know will know that although Namco's official explanation is it was a pizza slice or something similar to the same one about the same excuse. Well, Lucas actually said for the Millennium Falcon, I think it was a burger he bit into and got the idea from. Supposedly Pac-Man was a pizza slice. The more suspected genuine suggestion is involved you're popping pills, you're having munchies, you appear to be hallucinating ghosts. Well, you can guess what the more actual expected hallucination, what the creator was. Of course, that's subjection, but yeah, a lot of people do suspect the origins of Pac-Man maybe have been somewhat trippy. So I'm going to play a selection of games on the collection. I'll try to give about 5-10 minutes, give each game a couple of goes, or maybe one. We probably won't get through all 16, which is probably a good thing because I won't be able to unlock the other 2 because I don't have the memory card in, and I think the unlocks only occur after you save it. Now there is a pattern to all the ghosts, a pattern I have never learnt, although some of them do seem to like to chase you, and basically they do get harder and harder. I should actually just going to adjust the screen size. I'll just actually put this to the biggest, because the default screen size is actually... Yeah, that's better. The default screen size is actually the wrong resolution, so... They're all a bit mismatched in this. Oh, one other thing, I may have some slight delay responding to comments, because I'm actually looking at comments. I'm in the actual... open broadcast today. Normally I'm watching the stream, but because I need to make sure when we go back to the menus I quiet the menu music, I literally need to make sure that I'm 100% hot on doing that, because if I don't, the stream will be killed and this video will have all sorts of copyright fun, and it can impact your streaming as well if you get content IDs during streaming. So Maybe the Japanese version would have been better, because that doesn't use copyrighted music, because I have no idea why they decided to choose 80s rock songs. I assume one of those things, oh, these songs would be good, arcade. Some really odd songs. In fact, I'll bring up the list in a minute. It's just like these... they have Joystick, which I suppose the song-ish relevant to arcades. But the old joysticks that you use to control them. Actually quite impressed. I'm doing quite a good run at Pac-Man. I don't play Pac-Man that much, so generally I suck at it a bit. I think is the word to say. One of those games I've never mastered. I've never taken the time to master, and I mean, I really like the concept. I really like the later ones. I just find the original one a bit bland. Just the fact it's only the one stage. It's only the same 4 guys. It's purely a score thing. It gets ridiculously hard, ridiculously quickly. I think after about, basically, although people get the world sort of run stuff, it's basically after about 4 runs, the ghosts are nigh on impossible to. You can't even use the pills on the ghost after about 5 levels. So they just literally they revert back from the ghost state almost immediately. So Shadow Blinky, Speedy Pinky, Bashful Inky, Pokey Clyde. They do change around a bit. They're given slightly different names as well, as I seem to recall. Interestingly, that banner's really irritatingly placed. The press 1 to play actually blocks some of the arcade picture. Digital Eclipse didn't do the best of emulation quality. I would describe them as the best of a bad bunch, i.e. during this era there weren't that many dev studios. There were some terribly emulated games. Digital Eclipse stuff was alright, but then M2 came along and just literally obliterated them. Digital Eclipse are now long gone, but Frank Poldy, who runs one of the thingy things, did reuse the name for some reason. I don't know why, because their name was widely derided, so no point in bringing back a derided brand, but he did. But that's an odd one. Although I suppose some of the collections he was involved with, the Street Fighter one was quite infamously bad, so maybe he was encouraging the spirit of the Street Fighter collection on PS4 is absolutely woeful. That needs a patch and more time about it. It's just one of those collections that if I'd been involved with, I would have been deeply ashamed of. And I will say that if you're going to be developers and sort of mail and comment on Twitter and stuff, you have to be prepared to accept a bit of the flack when you release poor quality collections, especially retro games, because we should be having near perfect collections, and it does annoy me. I appreciate there's time, I've worked on games myself, but really if you're aiming to make a retro collection, your priority is to get it right. Because if your game is inferior to the original version, then the work is just utterly flawed. Although, to be fair, some of their stuff was quite good. Some of the newer Digital Eclipse have done some better stuff, but yeah, their Street Fighter collection was woeful and needed redoing. And it's a shame Capcom actually did that Street Fighter collection, as it absolutely spoiled Street Fighter 2 on the PS4. It was a really bad arcade collection. There was even missing a number of arcades. So Namco stuff has actually been pretty good. Namco have done a lot of single games though, so on the PS4 they've done some single releases. The emulation is very good largely, but I do wish they wouldn't use emulation, would just actually recreate the source code and rebuild the game. I mean, you can, I realise it's a difficult task recreating the source code. You can decompile and extract from completed games, but sometimes you'll end up with incomplete code, or you might be able to recompile it in a newer language if you reverse engineer it, but you won't likely be able to get the original language back. And actually not archiving games remains a huge issue in the games industry. Namco have actually been pretty good at keeping their arcade games re-released, but they have this weird habit of releasing the same games and not released. So they did titles like Lucky and Wild, really good arcade game. There's lots of arcade games they did that they haven't re-released. So Namco was sort of a weird one. They can release the same ones, but not some of the better ones. They never released like the 6th Theatre Galaxian. They did it on the PS1, and quite a few of them think, yeah, re-release this now would be really good, especially with the modern tech now, but they just haven't released it. Right, so after this go, I will jump into another game. I think I'll do Rolling Thunder next. There's quite a lot of games on this one. This isn't not a bad collection. Although this in itself... So they did the Namco Museum collections on PS1. Really good stuff. And then I think those ones were actually recreations of the original code. They're one of the few where they actually did reuse the original code, I suspect. Okay, so I'm going to nip back to the menu, so I'm actually going to mute the Elgato sound. Just make sure we have no music when I go back to the menu, because... So apologies, the in-game sound should all be quiet. I'm just going to check that. Do I take this out? There, we mute the sound. Okie dokie, right. So that's Pac-Man, that's the classic Pac-Man, and that is all muted, so I'm not going to get... I'm going to be very quick selecting my game as well, so... E, because that's thrown it back into interlacing, I think that has done. Let's do Rolling Thunder, I'll just quickly scan through them. Dragon Spirit as well is on this one. Eek, that has done. Okay, this is one collection that doesn't actually work with the... it's put it into 480p, which is good, but sadly, this was in progressive earlier. It's now thrown itself back into interlacing. So obviously this is one collection you can't force into interlacing via Swish, although I have forced it into... So this is Rolling Thunder. Again, there's a weird option where you can adjust the screens. This is Rolling Thunder, another absolutely cult arcade game. It's actually this was actually an interesting one because this got 2 sequels on the Mega Drive. I wonder if this is slightly actually based on Elevator Action, the inspiration for this. This doesn't always reach collections, actually. A couple times this doesn't actually hit... even include every Namco collection. Interestingly, this was actually missing from the original Namco museums. This was only included in the Encore one. And a little bit of trivia. This is one of many arcade games I have never finished. I have, however, finished the second one on Mega Drive. I would really love to play the third one, although I've only played that one on emulator as it was never released in Europe, and it's rather hard and expensive to source a copy for these days, so we want to track down on randomised gaming at some point. Ah, oh, damn it. Very reminiscent of Shinobi, actually, in the design as well. I wouldn't be surprised if this was sort of a mix between... They decided to take Elevator Action and cross it with Shinobi. Or maybe Shinobi was... Not actually sure when this was released. So, oh, he punched me. Just even the touching the enemies damages you. Okay, that's something to be aware of. And the villain gets to laugh in my place. Do you get to continue on this one? A lot of these old games you won't be able to continue on, but I'm going to see. Let's give it another go and see how far I can get. I'll try to move through a lot of the games actually, so I won't stay too long on any one, but I will see, at least have a good go on each of them. I don't think I'll get to them all. I will say the last two we won't be unlocking. The Japanese version does apparently have a different soundtrack. You also, so you don't get the bizarre 80s music stashed in there. And you also apparently have the two 80s games unlocked. Whether the Japanese version is slightly better emulation, I don't know. The Japanese are much more picky about making sure their retro collections are up to scratch, so to speak. It might explain why some of Capcom ones were definitely better in Japan and why certain of the Western collections were not released in Japan because they weren't up to scratch. It's actually one of those arcade games I should actually sit down and finish. I said the second game on the Mega Drive is really good. The third one's actually very good as well. So I should actually, this is one of those games I should definitely try and finish at some point. There's some of those games like on my list to do at some point. Such as Final Fantasy VIII, which I recently reinstalled on my PC. I got the remastered version and thought, oh, I'll install my original PC version as well. So this is a game you do have to be a bit conservative with the bullets, else you will run out. But it does annoy me with a lot of retro collections that developers don't take the care to produce the quality needs to be. And often I've seen people say, oh, we did this and this, and well, you may have added in this feature, but you broke this feature and screwed up this feature. So it's something you do have to be very mindful of. And it's something I think a lot of developers really, I think because a lot of publishers use these as cheap and easy cash cows, and really you actually want to rebuild the code base so that way you can re-release them on every format going. When you need to look at Square's issue where they haven't been re-releasing many of their classic RPGs because they don't have the code anymore, which is a huge embarrassment. My gun is very slow at the minute. I've got to be... Oh. Yeah, you run out of ammo, you really do come a bit unstuck. Okay, let's roll on to the next game, so to speak. Give the unintended pun there. Okay, who do we want to do next? Suggestions, guys? I'm just checking my audio is dead. Yep, Elgato is well and truly dead. So, what we got? I might do a racing one next. Or maybe Dragon Spirit? No, I think I should do a racing one just to do a mix. I won't do Rally X. Pole position. So yes, all those menus that the arcade menu where I'm selecting the game, you have like joystick, it's like Crazy for Love. There was Waiting for the Weekend, a really wacky selection, really quite good selection of songs. I just thought they have no place in a retro game. Okay, this does have analog controls. The original arcade game did. Now, it's fair to say the Namco museums were actually slightly better because they were not only were the original arcade games, in some cases they actually still had the code, so they actually added in additional features, modes and extras that weren't present in the original arcade. One of them added in additional stages for pole position or pole position 2. You had an additional dungeon in Tower of Galaga, in fact 3, although I could never get one to work in the Power Collection. Whole raft of extras. So this is prepared to qualify. I'm about to fail miserably. Is that it? Is that my go? Am I... That was game over. So it's qualifying, we're actually doing the main race. So high-low. Okay, so 170 is where you need to... Oh... Well, hopefully attempt 3 will be better. But yeah, Digital Eclipse have a hit and miss history. So as I said, the current Digital Eclipse is not the current one. That's a separate organisation. They've done some better stuff. As I said, their Street Fighter collection was awful and I wasn't overly impressed with it. One or two of their newer collections, the Mega Man stuff wasn't bad. But when they originally did stuff, there were some very hit and miss games. So, and the emulation quality, the emulation wasn't bad. I mean, it could have been worse. I think a lot of it might. I'm not sure whether they used their own engine or whether they were using MAME. I mean, I should just adjust the screen size. There's definitely a few issues with the actual screen size. They're using the wrong ratios on some of the games, so you're getting weirdly distorted pixels, which is a feature when you haven't got the scaling right. I'm not sure that braking sounds right either. It was actually one of those many arcade games I saw many times in the arcade when I was very young. Played it a few times as well. Probably the sequel more than the original, I suspect. Well, at least they got past the qualifying. Okay, let's go, let's go. Taking out the competition, one car at a time. Oh. Although more likely they'll be lapping me in the not too distant future. So it's still actually quite an enjoyable game, pole position, but it's definitely one that's a bit dated, and one that I think you really needed that original cabinet with the steering wheel. It does. It's a lot of these old arcade games, you know, I'm not sure how well they're emulated in terms of the controls. Really, you need a steering wheel to go with them. Okay, so that's game over. I think it's time to jump into another game. Yeah, I'm certainly not going to get them all. Just going to check. I have killed the audio, so it's time to go back to the game. To the menu. Pac-Man, Mrs. Pac-Man. Mappy's actually quite a good wacky. Oh, I should do Dig Dug as we've done it before. And I really do like Dig Dug, and it's the foundations of Mr. Driller, which I really enjoy as well. I'm playing Mr. Driller Land. We did briefly cover it in the sort of the first. We did 2 test streams ish. I say test; they were supposed to be proper, but we weren't quite happy with a few factors in them. So screen size. That's me not paying attention to the other enemies. That's the thing annoying with this. The enemies will come after you after a while. I'm ready this time. And pop goes the weasel. Nope, he's going to get away. Is he? Is he? No, I'm going to catch him just in the nick of time. So the enemies will actually, they come for you and then they start to try and escape. So you can basically chase them for a bit. Just know when they're going to come for you and when they're going to then make their escape. Is what you get. Very simple concept, Dig Dug. Very addictive concept. This is one of those classic arcade. I much prefer this to Pac-Man because there's just a bit more game to it and a bit more strategy of how you can play. You can do the hit and run tactic where you hit them, blow them up and walk away as well. Hi guys, thanks for the likes I should say on the stream. I appreciate we've got a couple people viewing. Ooh. So that's another tactic, blow them up and run away. Literally blow them up the once. And then you can pop them and then you can run away. This is one of those many infamous kill level arcade games where I believe in the original version. Oh, that's something you don't stop blowing up the other one. You have to. They've all started getting a bit. They're all starting to come for me now. The enemies. Oh, you're trying to get away, are you, chaps? We can't have that. The other thing is actually, rather than pumping up, it's quicker to actually just wrap them occasionally. I believe it's actually quicker to shoot them and back off, as I remember. Well, in that case, they're starting to mount up and really go for me. Okay, that was quite a good run. That was quite an impressive one. It was nice to get a nice little world record, of course. That's a really low world record and the easy score, and the top scores are way, way higher. But okay, there's still a lot of games on this collection I haven't covered, so as I've got to round 7 on Dig Dug, I'm going to nip off straight into another game. If you've got a suggestion for games you'd like to see, I'll just actually... That audio is off. Dragon Spirit Boscan. Boscan's a wacky one. I remember Boscan because I actually had this on the Spectrum. Bosconia. It's sort of weird, with a sort of weird Russian or Eastern European style name. Star Destroyer, Bosconia. This is a really early one, but this is one I remember we used to have it on the ZX Spectrum a long, long time ago. I still actually have my ZX Spectrum, but we haven't played it in years. I'd love to do Spectrum games on the channel, but we don't have an RGB SCART Spectrum, so I wouldn't consider doing one until we did. And I also need to sort out the actual hardware of it. We would definitely need a new ZX tape deck and everything. Where she aims to fly around, zap the enemies, and basically shoot up the big space station. So it's actually a sort of really early, sort of really good shmup. It's interesting, Namco developed a lot of genres when you actually look at their games. Like, so this is basically an early shmup, and then they didn't go forward with them. The interesting one is Bomberman. So Bomberman, you may remember, is an iconic Hudson Soft series. Bomberman is actually based on a Namco game. I can't remember the names off the top of my head. It literally is ripped from... There's a really early Namco game from the it's either the late 70s or the early 80s, where basically there's 2 mission types. You'll do like some bubble collecting or something on the first mission. Then on the second stage, you literally have Bomberman as the stage. And it's just like... There was always a reason why the guy, when he said, where'd you get the idea for Bomberman, was the creator of Bomberman was always a bit cagey. Turns out they just ripped it off Namco. Just ripped it up and down. Yep, I can see I've got to get down to the objective. And there we go, the first boss. So basically, the condition red is when things get really tough. So basically, just got to clear things as fast as possible. I mean, it's really just sort of top-down shooters. This is really one of those early years. Namco, it's weird. Namco really did push in the early 80s. Namco were really there pushing some of the genres. Oh wow, was that a direct hit on something else? Formation attacks are... Ah, you blow them instantly if you hit the reactor core. There's something I didn't know. I do now. Bonus for no miss clear. Those are literally fly straight. They look like they're almost parallel aligned in this one. Yep. Oh yeah, this is a really good run for a game. I haven't played in yonks. Oh, they're now throwing rockets at me if I try to shoot the weak points. Still worth going. It's still... One more to go. This is one that you don't really have to concentrate, but it's actually a very good early Namco game. What probably better? I mean, this is, to me, is more fun than Pac-Man, but obviously Pac-Man, I think one of the things is Pac-Man is a very, very simple concept, and this is a bit more complex. So this is a bit more shoot the enemies, blow up the things, dodge enemies, shoot this, blow up asteroids for score. You have a lot more threats and things going on. Pac-Man's just eat pellets, clear the stage. Admittedly, the newer Pac-Man's, the Championship, I should say the Championship version was given away until Championship 2 was given away, and we did include a note on the blog. That was really, really nice of Namco to do that. Oh, they actually have their name as the default high scoreboard as well. Another little subtle touch from the Namco developers back then. I think one of the biggest gripes of a lot of these arcade games is because they didn't credit people. We don't necessarily know who actually worked on some of these iconic games and who pioneered the games industry into many elements. Oh, I'm just going to mute that as well. I'm just going to jump to the next game. I don't think I'm going to jump on Dragon Spirits. I should do Mappy first. Dragon Spirits or Mappy? Because Mappy's a really good one. I would do Pac-Man then to unlock those two, sadly. Sky Kid's actually really good. Rally's okay. Pole Position 1 and 2. 2's probably better than 1. Miss Pac-Man. We covered before on the blog. And Miss Pac-Man's also one that isn't actually a Namco game. It was developed by Midway. Okay, here we go with Mappy. Okay, bear with me a second while I get to remember how to play this game. You have to dodge the cats, I believe. That's right, you can pass them on the jumping, but you can't. They'll follow you around the house. Again, with the screen size. It's a weird one. This is one of the really tough arcade games just to remember exactly what to do. It's been a while. But you slam the doors. I remember playing it relatively recently, really liking it, but it is very hard. So basically, the aim is to either kidnap the stuff in the house, or your Mappy's a police officer, where the other guys are trying to steal the valuables. It's one of those cult Namco games that you didn't really see much in arcade, but it's actually really good. So there are a few games like this where basically... Now I seem to recall this one. Oh, yeah. You've basically got to guide yourself through the jumps. A bit like an early version of Angry Birds, this. Or Flappy Birds, maybe. So basically you jump on them and the trampolines go down, so you need to make sure. You've got to be quick in that to earn everything. Ah, you can slam the door. You can slam the doors in their faces. And Officer Mappy is down again. It's not a bad little one. That one's it's quite a cult one, I have to admit. I do quite like it though, but it's very, very tricky. I'm going to jump onto Dragon Spirit now because that's a really good one. And again, just saying, I'm having to mute the main menu because that has copyright songs that are working for the weekend. I think I heard Come On Eileen's on it, or in the credits. There's some weird songs that you wouldn't think, why has this got to do with 80s arcade, Namco 80s arcades? That's probably cost them a fortune as well. And arguably this could well be the best game on the collection. So another annoyance is the fact that you have to actually start. So you can actually change the start area in this. Let's go from the beginning. This was one game I absolutely adored because I had it on the Amiga. There was actually a Dragon Spirit 2. I think it got a slightly different name, but I'm just trying to remember off the top of my head. No, it's gone. There is a Dragon Spirit 2 though, but I had this one on the Amiga. Fantastic game. Fantastic port as well on the Amiga. Let's see how far I can get against the hordes. I must admit, this is one of those arcade games I have never finished. I think the Amiga's version was only one player, so I think one of the arcades I should actually go back and finish. Sure, the fireball spitting dinosaurs. Okay, got to watch those birds. I just remember that you. And these fireballs on the Amiga's version, I always remember them because they looked a bit like flying bottoms. Okay. Oh no, I don't want to take a hit there. That means I lose a dragon head. So basically, the dragon heads act as your damage. So it's quite a nice thing. Well, you have lives, but also your additional heads act now to take hits. So it wasn't a take a hit and die shooter. You could. Let's upgrade my fireball shot. Come on, I really want second head again. I really would like the 3 heads. I'm probably not going to get that. Okay, these things are nasty because this is where they will come flying down on you. This level I remember brilliantly from the Amiga's version. Never finished it. What about the 4th? Could never get like the 4th or the 5th stage up. So this thing just spits fireballs left, right and centre. The Amiga's version, he was a lot more static. Gotcha. Well, that's a mark of a good shooter, that you can finish the first level relatively easy, because one of the big mistakes a lot of modern arcade games, and not a lot of games do, is you make your opening stage too hard. The whole point is to make the opening stage so that the player can finish it relatively quickly and easy and feel a bit like a badass. Because if the player feels that they've enjoyed your first stage, feels confident in their abilities, they'll keep playing even if you then ramp up the difficulty quite a bit more, because they think, oh yeah, I did really well on the first stage, I can do this. Okay, nothing worse than fireballs that spit. Okay, we've got another head coming up. Now, can I get 3? When can I keep this head without losing it? So basically, the more flame pouch you get, the stronger your flame goes. Eventually becomes like a massive dragon's breath that's just huge. They got one gripe with this. It was some of the enemies really did literally come out of nowhere. And on the later stages, if you die and you don't have the power-ups, it's basically an R-type scenario of you getting punished. I think this boss was the massive flame bird. Oh, can I get... Is that a 3rd head power-up? Ah! And this is what you're back. Your flame powers are gone, and it's back to being a plain old dragon. This is what I'm not keen on in shooters, because this is just so punishing, and often this can result in on later difficulties on games like R-Type. This is a non-progression. You are screwed if this happens to you. You are not coming back. There are certain games where this happens, you are not coming back from that. Okay, those things you just got to penetrate the... hope you get a shot that penetrates the shield and kills the thing in the centre. I think they just take one hit, but it's a case of making sure your shot penetrates. Okay, this was thinking a bit hectic, so I just lost all my dragon heads. I need a power up. Yes, it's the flaming bird. Okay, so I need to stay within its fireballs to... Okay, well at least I got an upgrade before this boss this time. This is certainly one of the better shooters on the on this collection. In fact, probably the best one. I think this reminds me very much of R-Type. It is very tricky, but it's still a very good game. If you like this, you'll definitely if you like R-Type, you'll definitely like this. I always really enjoyed this when it had an Amiga's version. Of course, the Amiga's version wasn't a patch on the arcade release, but still, it's nice to. It was nice to play a game that you thought was you thought when you were a kid was near arcade perfect. I think that was the thing. A lot of kids, you'd get like the rubbishy Amiga versions, and in your head it was arcade perfect. Of course, in reality, it was nowhere near. Except for something like Street Fighter 2, which I remember playing, just think, yeah, this is nowhere near arcade perfect, but it's still Street Fighter 2. Really great enemy design there. That just absolutely mullered me, that peacock bird. I mean, I can't say I've had too much issues with the emulation. It's not too much in the way of sort of slowdown or anything. It's probably not... It's not as good as it could be. Yeah, certainly not the Street Fighter collection, which did have added slowdown on a PS4. That's just unacceptable. Slowdown. They added in some weird shadow transparency thing. And may have added in issues as a result, and things like that really there were a few additional bugs that were added in. Ugh. Stuff like that really annoys me of retro collections. What's the time now? I'll quickly jump onto one last game briefly before we finish up. So any suggestions, people? I know we've got a few viewers. Thanks for the likes, guys. It's always really well appreciated. Don't worry if you don't suggest anything. You can just watch without saying anything. So I will probably jump into I'll jump into something. Maybe I'll jump into Galaga. That's a classic. Get music off. Galaga, Mappy. Yeah, Sky Kids is quite good, but that's a bit tricky to play, and it's been a long time since I played that. So yeah, we haven't quite covered all the games. I didn't think we would in this hour, so probably one to actually worth doing a proper video on the channel at some point. Quite a few of these collections are worth. So here we go with Galaga. Is it Galaga? Yeah, Galaga. It's Galaga. There was some recent people trying to mispronounce it. It's Galaga. Some people calling it like Galaga, or whatever. Few weird people trying to rename it. Everyone called it Galaga. This is the sequel to Galaxian. And it's actually a big improvement over the original. The original is still a very iconic game for what it did with some of the things like the scrolling and stuff. But this definitely just refines the gameplay so much more. You have a lot more mechanics with the whole spaceships getting grabbed and things. And the way the enemies come at you with the patternization, so it's a much more modern game in comparison to its predecessors. Predecessors probably the more important game historically, but this is definitely the better playing game. And actually, this was the mode that was the bonus mode in Tekken, so I remember. They could play as the sort of loading game. And interestingly, it was one of the ones that they created a patent for that then subsequently prevented anyone from using a game during a load sequence, which was really a really bad thing. But if you did, in Tekken, if you actually did all the stages of Galaga and killed all the enemies, you got a perfect score, you would unlock the Devil Kazemi skin, which is brutally hard to unlock. Even I haven't been able to unlock it. And I'm a professional. I would be regarded as a professional gamer, and it was just like, oh, this is really annoying and hard. You basically had to know exactly when to shoot, when to just master it. Yep, you can try and capture my ship, but you're not going to. Of course, there is the risk-reward thing where you can get your ship captured and you can shoot. Because you can then rescue it, you can then shoot twice, but I don't want to do that because it's a risk-reward thing because you effectively then have two ships on screen at once. As a collection, it's quite cheap to buy. I think there are a lot more modern versions. I mean, I know there was the 360 one, which had even more games on, so there are a lot of... And Galaga as a series actually had a lot of sequels, so there's sort of some really good modern ones they did. It's really annoying with some of these shots because you've got to get them literally spot on. The collision's not on the wings, it's actually in the centre of the body, So when the enemies fly over is a great time to get damage. You're not always sure if the ones that are flying in are going to join the main flank. Some of them are actually diversionary, so some of them will not be joining the main flank attack on you, but some will. So it's, if you can get them early... I thought he was going to loop around challenge stage. Yeah, you got a whole wave, so you get a bonus 1,000 points. Stage 8, that's quite a good one. Actually, I think unlocking Galaga 88, you need like 40,000 points. Oh, just before I got onto, there's some great patterns there, and you do get some interesting. This does introduce more enemies to go. So shots fired 600, it's 53% accurate. I think that's a fairly happy run, and that has run us up to 22:42. So it's 10:40, and I started at around probably just on 10:40. So I'm actually going to finish the stream there, guys. So as always, if you like this stream, hit the like button. And as always, if you've not subscribed to the channel and you're a new subscriber, we are doing weeknight streams, so you're welcome to subscribe and watch us every weeknight at 9:30 UK time. So with that, all that's left for me to say is my name has been Random Gamer Riven on behalf of Randomised Gaming. This has been our weekday daily stream. This has been Namco Museum 50th anniversary on the Nintendo Gamecube. It's actually the PAL version, I should say, I was playing. I might have something interesting tomorrow if it arrives. But we'll wait and see. There'll definitely be another GameCube title. And all the final words I'm going to say, seeing as we are just finishing, is I wish you a good night, a good evening, a good afternoon, or a good morning, wherever you are in the world. And thank you for watching, ladies and gentlemen. Good night, and I'll see you tomorrow.